Hi, Sunday School families. It's Miss Kim. Welcome back to our next lesson on the Last Supper. So, the Last Supper is what we have done as our Seder meal. It is when everyone got together for the Passover meal back in Jerusalem, and families got together every year and they kind of celebrated when their families, their extended families, had been released from Egypt and they had gotten out of slavery back in the times of Pharaoh. So they were celebrating this, and they were celebrating this in kind of a locked room. They were afraid. Jesus and his closest friends were afraid at this point in time that someone was going to get them. Jesus knew what was going to happen. And so he knew it was going to be his Last Supper. The disciples did not know that. They did not know that this was going to be the Last Supper for him, no matter how many times Jesus had told them that this was going to be it. So we're going to do a little bit of reading about this, the Last Supper. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world. He wanted to share his Passover meal together with his 12 closest friends, the disciples. Jesus loved his friends and wanted to show them his love in a very caring way. As the friends got ready for the meal, Jesus put water in a large bowl and knelt down on the floor. He wanted to wash the feet of each disciple. When it was Peter's turn, Peter said to Jesus, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus replied, "Peter, you don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will later." Peter loved Jesus so much that he said, "Then don't just wash my feet, but my head and hands also." Peter wanted to be as close to Jesus as possible. We had talked about this a little bit 2 weeks ago, and then our previous lesson where people had been laying down palms and different things so that Jesus's feet and even the feet of his donkey wouldn't get dirty. Well, the people in town by this point, and especially the people who were in charge and all of the religious leaders, had made it very difficult those couple days after that wonderful Palm Sunday. And they've made it so that Jesus and his friends had to go into hiding. And so here they're having their Passover behind a locked door. And Jesus is washing their feet to show how much he loves and cares for these people. But they're behind this locked door because people are going to try and capture Jesus at this point. And Jesus knows it. So they went from loving Jesus on Sunday, and then a couple of days later, they're now trying to capture him because they're angry with him. He's not the king that they wanted. He came in on a donkey and he was expressing peace, and they wanted a king coming in on a horse, and they wanted one that was going to fight for them. And that's not what God wanted for us. So it's kind of a tricky time for them right now. As they were eating, Jesus sadly told his disciples, "Soon, one of you will betray me. One of you will tell people who don't like me where I am so they can take me away." This upset the disciples, and each one said, "It's not me you're talking about, is it?" When Judas said this, Jesus gently replied, "Yes, Judas, you will betray me." So Jesus knew at this point that the person that was going to betray him or give him up, tell people where he is, was his disciple, his friend, Judas. And people don't to this day know exactly why Judas decided to give him up, but he did. He told the religious leaders where he was. So it was a very sad time. Then Jesus picked up a loaf of bread. He blessed it and gave some to each of his friends, saying, "Take this bread and eat it. This is my body." Then Jesus picked up a cup of wine. He gave thanks and said, "Drink this. It is my blood, which I must give up so the sins of people may be forgiven." Did all of that sound familiar? Now, most of you go to church a lot. You go to worship service almost every week, and some of you every single week. So you've heard that before. You've heard us talk at Holy Communion when we talk about how Jesus, with his disciples, picked up a loaf of bread, broke it, and said to them, "Take and eat. This is my body." And then we say that he took wine And he shared with them saying that this is his blood. And so if you take communion, or maybe if you don't, you've probably been up there when we've had communion, and people are sharing the bread and the wine. And this Last Supper is where it comes from. It's what Jesus first did with his disciples. He was sharing, and he was telling them how he needed to give up his body and his blood and his life for our sins, for the things that we've done wrong. And it's what we remember each week when we go to worship service. When the meal was over, Jesus and his friends went to a place called the Mount of Olives. Jesus said sadly, "Soon you will all leave me." Peter felt bad. "Even if all the others leave you, I won't," he said. Jesus looked at his dear friend and said quietly, "Before the sun rises, you will pretend you don't know me 3 times." Peter said, "Jesus, I love you too much to ever do that to you." And all of the other disciples said the same thing. So we do at worship service often talk about that. Before a rooster crowed 3 times that next day, before the sun rose that next day, after they had taken Jesus away, people had run up to Peter and said, "Aren't you the man that was walking with Jesus? Aren't you the one that I saw with Jesus?" And 3 different times, Peter, fearing for his own life, Peter denied that he knew who Jesus was. He said, "It was not me. That wasn't me." 3 different times. And then the sun rose and he heard the rooster crow. And that's when he realized that what Jesus had said had come true. And that was when he realized all the other things that Jesus had said were coming true too. He knew that Jesus was going to give his life. He knew he was no longer going to see his friend on this earth. It was a very sad and hard time for him. Jesus gave his life for us. He gave it so that we would be forgiven every time that we make mistakes and we sin. What are some things that you could do to show the people around you that you love them? Right now is kind of a different time. We're at home. We're with our families a lot right now. We're staying safe and we're staying healthy. So what can you do with your family to show them how much you love them? Maybe you could help clean a little, play games. Maybe you could spend some time really sharing things with each other. You could help prepare some of the meals together. You could laugh together. You could show each other by drawing pictures, give hugs. All the people that you love, you can reach out to by writing letters or making videos or maybe FaceTime or sending different things in the mail. Ways that you can reach out and tell your family and your friends that you love and you miss them. Now is a good time to do that because we never know exactly when we're going to see them next, especially in a crazy time like this. Well, I love and I miss all of you, and I hope that you're doing very well. Stay safe and stay healthy, friends.